Thank you, brother. Thank you. It's so good to be back in Mesoamerica. Just 2 weeks ago, we were in Asia. We were in the Church of the Nazarene. And there are so many challenges in Asia that Christianity is facing there. But it's beautiful to be able to be back with the brothers and sisters in Mesoamerica. Thank you, Dr. Saenz, for inviting me and giving me this place. Before we begin kind of formally, I'm testing out what I'm going to be teaching. And this is a material that you're going to receive. It's the first time I've taught this, but I'm going to be able to teach this in the doctoral program of Transformational Leadership in Asia Pacific, Nazarene Theological Seminary. And so obviously there is a threefold focus of that doctorate. It's very interesting. In Asia Pacific, in the theological seminary, we're focused on the educational side, of course, but also on how we put it into practice amongst children and youth, but also amongst cities and amongst the culture, the prevailing culture of many of our countries around the world. And so this will be my first time to talk to you, to talk to anyone really about this material. But we're hoping that this is applicable and able to be contextualized from Philippines to the US to anywhere in Mesoamerica. And so I want you just to be pending, look at the chat, and I want to just ask you 5 questions. I want you to use the chat. We're not going to open up the mics for everyone to be able to use the to talk and give their opinions, but use the chat. And I'm going to be reading the chat. So in your context, what is the most accepted definition of leadership in your part of the world? It doesn't have to be a formal definition, but just what do you think leadership is it can be characterized as? So there's some of you who heard my sermon in the General Assembly. We talked about everyone is a minister. Everyone is a minister. And so some people think leadership is being in ministry. And some people think leadership truly in the church is just being a pastor. So I want you to write in the chat, what does it mean for you? What does leadership mean in your context? Okay, not just to you, but in your world area. Now, not necessarily in the church, but just in your culture, in your country, in your context. When you are talking with people, when you're kind of hearing, how do they define leadership? What is it? What is leadership? Some people say influence. Some people say leadership is developing your gifts for the benefit of someone else. Somebody says orientating somebody else. Leadership is also transforming someone's thoughts into the mind of Christ. Okay, I like that a lot of you are that a lot of you are participating in some context as we talk about leadership. There are a lot of times that people think, oh, what we are doing is training pastors. So when we talk about leadership training, people think it's exclusively for pastors. No, remember, leadership is for everyone. Ministry is for everyone. So now let's ask a second question. In your context, identify 3 key national leaders in your context. And what are they different from the respected Christian leaders in the country? So think about 3 key national leaders in your country or context, okay? Those are not Christian, those are not Nazarene. But in what are they different? How do they differ from respected Christian leaders in your context or country? Okay, and you can put 1 or 2, just go ahead and a Christian leader, how does he differ from a normal, a regular leader in your context? Okay, some of you can put the names. Oh, he is asking for names, I guess. So he's asking for examples. I did not know that he was asking for names, but I guess he is asking for specific names. So it's interesting. You have mentioned some of these names. I want you to write there. I want you to describe that person, okay? So maybe not just the name, but why are they a good leader, okay? What do they do? This sister, this brother, oh, he's a great leader because, oh, his passion, okay, I'm starting to see his desire to serve, her leadership, her direction, her service, his commitment, simplicity, patience, the fruit of the Spirit. Ooh, what a great list. Commitment, persistence, leadership. So now let's go to another question. Now I want you to make a list of your national leaders, secular leaders, okay? That people recognize in their context as good leaders. And here's where we're going with this. Then talk to us. There are similarities, of course, but talk to us about how what you see is a difference between Christian leaders that you revere, Christian leaders that you respect and admire, and the typical leader that is respected in your context. So don't just put a person. Tell us some of the differences. What is the biggest difference that you see? Somebody said it's all about media. Some of them say, okay, the leader, the national leader does things to make sure that the people vote him in. Somebody says the biggest difference is the fear of God. Some people are saying, well, the president is thinking about position and power, but Christians are guided by the Holy Spirit. In our national leaders, the fear of God does not exist. Somebody puts the difference is just a priority for children and service. So this is all a topic. I mean, good job. You guys are giving us good ideas, good differences. Okay, so now another question. What are the 5 greatest difficulties? Now you may not have 5, but just put 1 or 2. Put 1 just as quickly as possible there in the chat. What are the greatest difficulties for developing new leaders for your ministry or your organization? What are the 5? What are the greatest difficulties for developing new leaders? The barriers, the difficulties. Lack of commitment, many people are saying. Envy. the same organization. What are the biggest difficulties? The intentionality or lack thereof, lack of availability, time, availability. There's a lot of critical people, lack of passion, lack of economic resources, lack of passion for renewing a new generation of leadership. They don't have a clear purpose. The places, our field is too big. It's hard to invest in isolated leaders because it's just so big. I think we're going to have to keep this. All of the people in mentoring, maybe you can save the chat, because my goodness, we are getting a list. Well, this list is valuable. This list is telling us these are the barriers. We have like 60 different difficulties, barriers, challenges in our region. Challenges to forming leaders. Now, we go to the next question. When we were working in our first assignment as missionaries, it was 32 years ago, imagine that. I sent the seminary students to do their basically their internship or their ministry exercise. And I asked them, what is your biggest problem or biggest challenge in Guayaquil? Because we happen to be in Ecuador. And so they talked about violence and theft and unwed mothers, abuse, many other things. But then I said, okay, good, thank you. That was easy for them to think of. They all thought about the problems. But then the next question, and I'll put it here today. What can you do to overcome those difficulties? There was a list of problems. There was a list, a huge list. People knew these are obstacles. And in the world, we see a lot of huge problems. So if you look at social media, if you look at so many people that know what the problem is, you look at social media, I had to get off Facebook, I have to admit it. Everybody had a problem with everyone else. During the pandemic, there were a lot of people that were experts. I'm now the expert in theology. I'm now the expert in politics. I'm now the expert in immunology. And people just were talking about how other people didn't know anything. And look at the list. I mean, no problem. I mean, I asked you for a good list and you gave it to me. No problem there. But the question is, what have you done? What have you done in the past years to address those problems? What can you do? So now start looking at this. Put it in the chat. What can you do? What can we do to address those challenges and problems? Keep your focus on the doable, Leonard Grant says. What have you done? So Brother Israel says, training on leadership. Some people say making sure that we intentionally dedicate time to train, and focus on those who are excited about learning, not just trying to persuade those who don't seem interested. I'm going to just stop here. Remember a couple years ago when we talked about discipleship, mentoring, we talked about difference about evangelism, discipleship, and mentoring. They are really three different things. Mentoring new leaders isn't precisely discipleship. Evangelizing, it's not mentoring exactly. So you guys are giving excellent ideas. So I'm going to just refresh us. What and some people are saying they're not hearing in Spanish the transmission, but I think that's their issue. Gerson is asking that the translator change over to Spanish. Okay, so now we're doing well. So now I'm going to give you just a really quick refresher. The essential topic for today is, what is transformational leadership? What is transformational leadership? But before that, we need to talk about a few pieces. We need to talk about relevance, the relevance of leadership today. When we talk about leadership, this topic is vital because, number one, we have accelerated change in our culture. We knew this before the pandemic, but definitely during and after the pandemic, we're realizing the world is changing drastically and rapidly. We have moved from modernity to post-modernity. So those young people that you are passing the baton to, they don't think the same as you. They're not following the same assumptions. They're not believing the same assumptions as you. So postmodernism is very different from modernism or modernity. Another change we have seen, we are going from the printing press to cyber technology. Here we are literally on Zoom. We would have never thought there would have been a possibility to train 182 people from more than 30 countries with different languages, with different contexts, and we'd be able to receive the same training. When I was working for the German business Siemens in 1981, they were talking about technology. We received training. And I was talking to them about the fax machine. I remember that I was giving the training as a 28-year-old. And after I was talking about fax, everyone was like, whoa, this will change things. And then, you know, I talked about how there would be a video phone where you could be able to talk with someone and see their face. And they laughed and they said, that's like the Jetsons. I said, I think it's coming. I think it is. And this is the age where we've seen everything escalate so quickly. And also in 2004, I want you to know, that was a tipping point where we went from 50% or more was rural to more than 50%. More than half of the globe is in cities, and especially large cities. And so before then, we could have said, well, we're primarily across the globe a rural society. There are some big cities, but the majority of people live in some rural context, small towns. The majority, but the majority of humanity right now lives in cities. And a lot of times we as a church have not figured out how to touch and how to impact cities. We continue to use rural technology. And please turn your microphone off. And we're hearing somebody who doesn't have their microphone on. Or if the people can be in charge of making sure that everyone has their mic off, other than me. Okay. So the next reason why we have to talk about leadership more and more is because we have a very marked dialectic. What I'm talking about is that we're in tension. On one side, the church is talking about purpose. The church through the centuries has continued to say the Bible has Christian principles, biblical principles that help us, that guide us. But modernism immersed us in, I think, therefore I am. It immersed us in, oh, well, I mean, the Bible is not the authority. I mean, really, it's your rationality. It's science. And so that's been a dialectic for several centuries now. But then we say, well, the Bible and God says, and on one side they say, well, yeah, but is this rational? Let's talk it out. Let's think it out. Another reason leadership is so important is that our generation, my generation, from 50 years and above, 50 years and older, we have been formed by modernity. Okay, we're hearing feedback. We are formed by modernity. And because of that, and so there are certain models, certain things that we were taught this way. So this generation of leaders, the next generation of leaders, this is the last generation of leaders that we can say has been formed by modernism, modernity. Because we all are trying to form them with the principles that we learned. Or we just don't know how to train them up to form them according to their context, or we just don't know anything else other than what we've been taught. The church has been affected or infected by a concept that's really popular in our times, and it's transactional leadership. Transactional leadership is what we've learned. I give and you give back. If you deserve it, if you reciprocate, I invest in you. If you continue to obey and to continue to do what I'm teaching, then I will continue to invest in you. So we give a list of things that the person should do, and the employee or the person does those things, and we say, oh, that is a great person. We love this person. We want them as part of our church. We want them as part of our business. That's transactional leadership. Who do we say as a leader? The person that pays attention to me. We put as a leader the person who looks like us, the person that follows everything that we do, everything that we say. And we see the difference in transactional and transformational leadership. Remember in Numbers 11, Moses is just up to here and he's talking with God. The people are bored with manna. They're tired of just wandering around in the desert. They've come out of Egypt, but they'd kind of like to go back. And Moses says, I need to talk to God. Moses complains. And he says, am I the dad? Am I everybody's dad? I'm tired of these people. And God invited him to a leadership meeting. He said, I want you to bring together all of your leaders. So there were more than 70 people there. He says, while they were there, they started to prophesy. They started to prophesy. So the result and there were two, Edad and Medad, and they apparently were out of the group, and they began to prophesy. And remember, there was a successor to Moses, and he was talking about inherited. He was thinking in transactional leadership. What did he say to Moses? He said, these two did not follow the instructions. Eldad and Medad, verse 26 and 27. Remember, Joshua is the one, he was indicated to be the successor. And he says, stop them. And Moses' reply in verse 29 is very interesting. Are you jealous for my sake? Are you jealous? Are you jealous because they didn't follow exactly my instructions? Joshua was really formed in a transactional mindset, but he was being led by a transformational leader. And so when I was a young person in the MAC region before we were Mesoamerica, I saw both of those sides. There were transactional leaders that if you didn't check off all those boxes, you weren't a good leader. You weren't a good layperson. And of course, pastors invested in them, leaders, district superintendents invested in those people. But there were leaders that were transformational. And there are other people that said, but this person didn't follow to the T all of the boxes and check all the list. And there were leaders that, praise the Lord, were able to say, that's okay. They have different gifts. They have different abilities. Let's still make a place for them to have a space in leadership. A lot of young leaders, a lot of older leaders are not in our church because we have been operating as transactional leaders and not transformational. Moses says, I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would put his spirit on them. That is transformational leadership. And that's what I'd like to talk with you about today. What are the concepts, the principles of transformational leadership? There are some people that are so square. And they say, oh, no, we shouldn't be talking about leadership. These are corporate principles. And I'm telling you, we can learn from the corporate world. We can learn from secular books, but we always apply them in a context, a biblical context, a church context. We a lot of times use some of these complaints in order to defend our place in leadership. Oh, well, I mean, these are not of God. Well, the first thing I'd like to relay to you is that there are key factors in leadership. First, the ability to take the lead. Leadership has two elements. One is the ability to take the lead. The ability to lead. I mean, it seems redundant, but yes. But we also have to have the ability to move people to follow. A leader without followers is not a leader. You can't say you're a leader if no one is following you. And so the key leadership principles, I want you to just stop here a little bit. There was a question that was given to many people several years ago. What causes a person to seek a leadership position? And they polled more than 3,000 people, and they asked them, what motivates someone to seek a leadership position? And the result was, remember the question, why does anyone want to become a leader? Why do you want to be in a leadership position? 70%. This would include Christians, secular, anybody, all of society. 70%. 7 out of 10. 7 of every 10 people was interested in a position of leadership because that position would give them power, would give them money, and would give them privileges. In how many of our countries full of corruption, they're studying leadership so that they would be like, I would love to have it because I'll have money, power, and privileges. I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the one that's influencing others. I want to be the one that's rich. 70%. People that want a raise, people that want a different position, want to be elevated in their businesses. That's the reason. 70%. If we were to be honest in this group, there's a person that just put nothing different in the church here in the chat. 25%. So 25 out of every 100 said the reason why we look, they didn't say it with their mouths. It wasn't just, why do you seek it? The test was able to gauge. And so the 25% responded, and it really came out that they really liked the prestige. I want to tell you, a lot of times in the general church, there's not really a lot of power. I mean, if you think about it, you might think about it in the church setting, but in the surrounding world, there's not. If you continue to go rise up in the ranks, there's not a lot of money in it. There's not a lot of power in it necessarily. You think there is maybe in the church, but there really isn't if you get down to it at a granular level. But there is prestige. People look at at leaders differently. People talk with them different. A lot of us as leaders, we are here, and if we had to take truth serum, we'd say, yeah, I kind of like when people use all of the titles. Oh, the most excellent doctor, 2 times a doctor, PhD, superintendent, general superintendent. Oh, our loving, our dear, our friend, the wonderful, most excellent Gustavo Crocker. And even some of you are laughing already. In the secular environment, 25% said, no, money, power, not necessarily, but prestige. Yeah, that people look at me differently. We would like to finally be NYI president, so people come to us and say, oh, you're the leader. Even if I have to pay to be the leader, so I'm not getting any financial help out of it. I like it because I want to put it on my business card. I want to be able to have the title. And just 5%, 5 of every 100, 5 of every 100, if the statistics were to continue to talk about us, if this was like, if we were to think about all of us, 200 people, there would just be 10 of us in this entire room, 10 of us that would say, oh, I want to be a leader in order to transform the world and to make a difference. Just 5% of all those that were polled, tested, evaluated, desired to be leaders because they really wanted to see change and they wanted to be part of transforming the world. And they knew that leadership position would give them greater chance to do that. Just 20 years ago, I came to leadership in Eurasia as the regional director. I was vice president of World Relief. And I was also vice president in charge of the Evangelical Association in the United States. And the president of World Relief came to me. He called me to New Hampshire in the northeast of the United States and to his house. He said, you have already accepted, you're going to Eurasia. You're going to be the regional director. And I wanted the directing board said, we want to talk with you, and we can put you on the fast track to be the president of World Relief. We view that in you. We see that in you. And I said, no, I've already accepted it. I already thought. He said, Gustavo, this place, this position has influence. This position, presidents of the United States actually talk to the president of World Relief. And he said, and he said, if somebody were to ask, would you be the president of UNICEF? He said, I would have definitely a lot of power and a lot of prestige and a lot more money than if I were just the head of education in my country for my church. But the head of education in my church, a lot of times, is a volunteer position. And I realized, you know what? that has actually more influence, more potential to transform the world than being the head of UNICEF. In 10 years, we moved in Eurasia from 55,000 to over 200,000 members. And he's citing statistics. I can't remember all of them. He was going through very fast, but basically his point is that in Eurasia, as he made that decision, he realized he could make such a big difference, even more so than being the president of World Vision or of World Relief. And that's what happened. He ended up seeing the kingdom of God that exploded in a lot of countries in Eurasia. So we're going to talk about these different elements. The first element that's important when we talk about leadership is the position. Now, the position does not give authority ultimately to a leader. Some of us think because we have the title, because it says here on my business card, I am this person. I am this position. I have this title. That doesn't give you true authority, though. But that's not the case. Jesus didn't have really any position in the hierarchy of the church of his day, in the Jewish, like high priest or anything like that. In fact, that offended a lot of people. You don't have any position. You don't have any title. Who are you to teach us? Who are you? And they mocked him because they put the king of the Jews. Ha, he's crucified. He's the king of the Jews. Oh, we'll give him the ultimate title. The title that we have gives us platform, but it doesn't give us authority. There are people that don't have a position or a title that have authority. And there are plenty of leaders that have the title that don't have authority. Remember Nehemiah? He was a cupbearer to the king. Now that had prestige, we have to admit. Why? He was close to the king. Oh man, he's right next to the king. I mean, the king trusted in the cupbearer more than anyone. He had authority. He took the cup, took the wine to the king. The cupbearer had to know if there's poison in there, well, the cupbearer is no more. And if it's not contaminated, then the king, let's say that he counted to like 30. Okay, 29, 30. All right, nothing happened to the cupbearer. I'm good. And he would take the wine. He would say, okay, I believe it. This is healthy. Because the work of that position was required so much trust, but no authority. It was most trust, but hardly any actual authority. So position doesn't give you authority. Position gives you a platform. It gives you platform. So if position or title only gives you platform, what gives you authority? It's the person that you are, your character, the person. We've had comparisons. You can remember some of these. Leaders who have the same position. Why do we have two leaders? They have the same title, the same position, two pastors, two superintendents of a district, two regional directors, two general superintendents, two NYI presidents. How is it possible that one has more authority than another? Hey, you've seen it, you know it. And a lot of times it's the moral authority of the leader, because they have the same position, they have the same title, but one is thinking transactionally and one is thinking transformationally. There's not even a thought that this is so crucial. No doubt is what he's saying. Position gives you platform, that's important, but character, you're the person that you are and being formed into as a leader gives you authority. And then if we have two leaders, same position, same title, and then they have the same authority, both are sanctified, both are seeking to be like Christ, they're reflecting Christ in all they do. Same position, same character, but one is more efficient than the other. Well, now we're training you in this. That's the reason we're here today. Transformational leaders, position, they might have a position or they might not, but they're also the person that God wants them to be, but they also know that they use processes that are vital and important and that foment or found more leaders. And so we assume all of us, I'm going to just assume, assume all of you are here, man, you're giving up your Saturday. You're coming here, man, you might have a position. And we all have a platform. You've received this invitation. And we're going to assume, maybe it's not the case, but we're going to assume that you're all following the Lord, passionate about him. You're formed in his likeness. But we want to help you to learn processes that are going to form more leaders. So the summary is, somebody said that a transformational leader is an empowering leader. A leader who uses practices and mechanisms in order to be more efficient, not to be more authoritative. Remember all of those essential things, and the character was the most essential. But the efficient, the effective leader use the right processes. There were leadership theorists 50, 40 years ago that started to talk about the essentials. The essentials, the differences between transactional and transformational leaders. And these are a lot of the things that they started to talk about. Leaders who are transformational grab the attention through a vision. The word of the Lord says, without vision, the people perish. Second, leaders bring meaning through clear communication, concise and congruent and clear communication. Leaders that are transformational have vision, but they also communicate effectively. But there's also another component. Leaders develop trust by being clear and committed, and they live what they preach. They develop trust, but they also empower. They multiply themselves through a positive self-regard or positive self-actualization. So I've been told I have a certain amount of time. So in the next half hour, I want to give you 10 characteristics of a transformational leader. 10 characteristics. 10 characteristics that talk. I'm going to present to you these 10 characteristics. These are not just personal things, but these imply that we are putting this into practice in order to help others to be leaders. So this includes who we are, but it includes what we do as well. To be who we are, but also what we do. So this study, this is corroborated. I'm just going to give you the introduction to just be able to apply it. In this next year, you're going to be focusing yourself in a third year of mentorship training. And these are 10 these are 10 principles. It's going to be up to you to develop these personally and in practice. Now, in the doctorate that I'm going to do, we're going to be talking through the whole doctorate, not just one course, through the whole doctorate in APNTS about each one of these, trying to develop in these leaders the character, but also the practices, being and doing, through exercising these practices so that our leaders are more efficient and effective. So, first one. I just need to say, this is based in a study. One of the Leighton Ford, one of the best leadership writers and thinkers. I'll write it below here. Leighton Ford. And Leighton Ford, and here's the name of the book, Transformational Leadership. This is the text that I'm using. It's formed me, and it's I'm hoping that it will form our students in APNTS and you as well. Because the 10 elements that I'm going to give you also really are reflected in a leader that is a leader of Jesus Christ. I'm not talking about a diploma, like, you've received like John Maxwell leadership or whatever. Leadership 101, and you receive a leadership certificate. But I'm talking about a doctorate where they study this book, and we study transactional leadership and transformational leadership. 8 of the 10 principles that Leighton Ford introduces, industry or commerce also has that. And and you pay thousands of dollars, thousands of your money to be able to learn those 8 concepts. A transformational leader is a follower or a son. So you can't be a leader without being a follower. Now, this was translated here, and it says son. And remember that no general, no one is put as general before they're a soldier. The head of the church is Jesus Christ. Paul is talking to the Philippians, and he says, your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in the same essence and form as God, he did not think that was something to hold on to, but humbled himself. In fact, the agenda of Jesus Christ was the agenda of a servant. Since from when he was, when Jesus was, remember when he was lost, he was a child. And do you remember that his parents got worried? They returned to Jerusalem, and his response to them was, well, why didn't you look for me here? Didn't you know I was in the things of my Father? I was in his work. A lot of times we find people that like the position, like to be leaders, but they don't like to follow anyone else. A transformational leader, before anything, is a follower. There's when we develop leaders, there's an entire theory that has been developed, and it's the leader as follower. So we talk about strategies to be a follower, the role of obedience. When we are truly a leader, how good are we at following others? That will be a gauge to how good, or what the quality of leadership that is that we will have. Transactional leaders a lot of times want to mandate, want to give instructions, and want people to follow them, but they're not good at following other people. Somebody asked us one time, are you worried about the General Assembly? It was during the General Assembly. I said, oh, so I was sharing at the General Assembly that I have a mentor. And somebody said, a general superintendent has a mentor. Oh, wow. Like the point of what I was saying was not that, but that's what they took away. And they said, a general superintendent is actually giving report to somebody else, is actually seeking to still be formed. Wow, I never thought of it that way. And I said, obvious. Who am I if I can't be able to submit to someone else and learn from somebody else? Second characteristic. A transformational leader is a strategist. One of the things that we have found, maybe we think, oh, we're really spiritual. And we always cite, oh, well, we always make a lot of plans. The plans of man are nothing compared to God. His heart is the most important. And a lot of times we use that as justification to not plan, justification to not have too much strategy. Remember that Paul, the Apostle Paul, is known in the Muslim world in Turkey. They don't talk about him as an apostle, of course, they're Muslim. But they call him Saul, and they call him, oh, and do you know how they call him? They actually name him. They say, oh, citizen of Tarsus, who is the lead strategist of early Christianity. That's what they say. The Muslims know Paul as Saul, the lead strategist of early Christianity. And so remember what he says, the reason I'm going to Spain is that in Asia, we have finished the work, but before I go to Spain, I'm going to go to Rome. And I didn't plant the church in Rome, but I'm going to go to Rome to encourage. But in the process, there is a plan. I'm going to take an offering to the holy people, to the saints of the church. And the Apostle Paul was a strategist. In fact, Jesus talks to his own disciples and he says, what builder would start to build a tower without taking into account what that will cost? A leader must be a strategist. A transformational leader must have strategy. If you fail in planning, you are planning to fail. The third S, a transformational leader is a seeker. It's a seeker or a apprentice. Apprentice, I think, is the word that he's using. Or a learner. We could also say a learner. So a lot of us don't think, we think leaders are born they're instead of taught. That's not really the case. Leaders are taught. In the south of Mexico, thank you, Miguel Angel, thank you to your leadership. They invited me to give a workshop on strategic planning in the pastoral ministry. And so, hey, that I think we did that during the pandemic, I think is what he's saying, and they did that virtually. But I sent that. The information is there. I'm not sure where all of that is, but you have access. Anyone on this call has access to that material. But a leader has to be a strategist. Miguel Angel Ceballos. Now he is here in the general board. Next week, he's going to be here. And we're going to be together. But the third is that a transformational leader is a learner, a seeker. A lot of times when we're in elementary school, then when we go to high school, then we go to college, then we eventually maybe get our master's or doctorate. The Church of the Nazarene has the wisdom that every leader should have continuing education credits. Every pastor, every leader, us as general superintendents, we all have to continue our education. A lot of our leaders have stayed in the century, the 20th century, and not the 21st. Look what the Lord says to Pharisees. Remember what Jesus says? You know how to predict when you see a cloud. Oh, rain is coming. Oh, you know what? Today it's going to rain. Tomorrow it won't. But you don't know the times. In order to know the times, a leader must be a seeker, must learn, must understand, not just from books, but from the times. You know what differentiates us in the Wesleyan Arminian strand of theology from others? We believe that the inspiration of the Lord is there, of course, and we also must use our own logic and the free will, or the will of humans to respond to the inspiration and the divine revelation of God. When I had finished my doctorate in leadership, somebody can say, "Oh, well, he's a doctor." But then Harvard offered to me to do postdoctoral studies. I had already finished. I had gotten to the stage that I wanted to. For people that like prestige, then I could have been like, "Oh, hey, now people are going to call me doctor." That's what I wanted in life. But like, then I received that, to continue studying. I said, "Oh man, do I want to keep studying?" And I just kind of put it away for a while. And then somebody I was talking to said, "Oh, you should do it. You've never stopped learning. Continue to learn. Even though you have your doctorate, your PhD, if you're going to continue to impact future generations, you have to keep learning, continue, take advantage of that invitation." And I was able to do that. Last week, I was in the board of general superintendents, board of district superintendents, where we were talking about with the USA and Canada. And one of the things that we really talked about was continuing to be formed and equipped. The next characteristic of a leader who's transformational is that they need to be a visionary. They need to be a seer. The word of the Lord says, without vision, people perish. I have to say to you, brothers and sisters, if we're talking about Bitcoin, if we're talking about dollar, or the money, the money of a leader. Oh, the currency of a leader is what he's saying. The currency of the leader is vision. Vision. The currency of a leader is vision, is what he's saying. So in Habakkuk, chapter 2, it says, "Write down the vision, put it in the tablets, and then run with it. Give it to someone to run with it. And don't get ahead of yourself. Be patient. In its moment, it will bear fruit." A visionary leader is one who God gives them the vision, but they share that. And I'm not just saying, I'm not talking about angelic or prophetic visions, and now I'm going to transmit that to everyone. I'm talking about, what about a vision for the community? A transformational leader has to see what others don't. In the United States, there was a district superintendent. We just installed him as a DS. We want a church in every community. We want a pastor in every church. We want 12 leaders in each congregation. What a beautiful vision. A leader without vision is an administrator, a business administrator. So vision is a key characteristic of a leader. Now, the next characteristic is that they are decisive. Now, to fit in for the English, the S, they use strong one. But it's basically the idea behind that is that you must be decisive. Now, to be decisive doesn't mean you're an authoritarian, autocratic, or a dictator. I love the church in Mexico. Somebody said, somebody from the Mexican church had spread the rumor that when he's in the assemblies, that he's a dictator, that Dr. Crocker is a dictator. And I said, no, 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 no. Sometimes when I'm decisive, people interpret that as, oh, he's ramrodding. He's making sure that he's making sure that no one else thinks anything else except for him. I said, I never have intended to do that, but I know that there are times in an assembly when I must be decisive, when I must say, okay, we have talked a lot about this. Let's call, is there a call to vote, a call to action? When we were in a training, in another country, and we were training, and a leader needs to have a balance, is what I was telling this country with more than 100,000 Nazarene members. They should have light and love. They should have truth and love. They should have compassion, and they should have truth. Compassion and decision. So compassion without decisiveness is not much leadership. It's valuable, of course, to society, but it ends up just being social action. But decisiveness without compassion ends up being dictatorship. So humility, humbleness, meekness also should be a companion of decisiveness. Okay, we only have 5 more minutes, so I can't keep going into that, but I'm hoping that you're understanding me on that. In our doctoral course, we have an entire chapter over the theory of making decisions, because there are leaders that naturally are reflective, and there are leaders that are naturally assertive, and both of them are fine. There are lots of people, assertive leaders, that are just, okay, immediately I'm gonna make a decision. If you ask me, I would say that's the way that I lean. That doesn't make me better. That's just how God made me. But a reflexive leader would say, hey, give me time. Give me time. I need to reflect, but I will make a decision. Both of those are vital and important. But when there are the assertive on the side that's assertive, we have intuitive, and they make a decision, but it's based on intuition. And there are assertive people that also, leaders that also are impulsive. Impulsive can be bad, right? So it's just like, okay, I see what's happening. I'm going to take it and make a decision. I'm just going to do this. And when we talk about the reflective leaders, there are also some that analyze, and there are some that are paralyzed. So the reflective leader that analyzes takes his time and eventually gets to a decisive moment and says, we're moving forward this way. They're reflective, they analyze, but they make a decision. But you've heard of paralysis by analysis. There are other people on the reflective side that just, I'd like more information. I'm not sure what to do. And they just never respond to an email, and they never actually make a decision. What I want to tell you is that a leader must be decisive, must make decision. We have to land the plane here. Okay, we only have a few times. So the next, we have just a little bit of time. So a transformative leader is a servant. I'm not going to talk about this very much. You've received entire courses on servant leadership. Remember that Jesus said, he who wants to be the greatest must be the least of these. Remember the disciples, so the sons of Zebedee came and asked, we want to show up on the right and the left when you come into your kingdom. And the mom even comes to talk with them. Talk with Jesus. They wanted there to be. So in the inner circle, he's saying, in the inner circle of Jesus, you saw that there was James, John, and Peter. But they could see what was happening. They said, there's three, but there's only one left and one right. And so there's three of us. We're going to get there ahead of Peter. We're going to make sure we're brothers. We're going to be the ones on the right and the left. And so their mom comes and asks on their behalf. And then Jesus, what does he say? Are you willing to drink the cup of which I am about to drink? And they said, oh, yeah, because everybody wants to just be recognized, want to be great, want to have the title. But Jesus knew what cup was the one he was about to drink. He who wants to be a leader must also be a servant. In some of our countries, we say, he who does not live, okay, so in Spanish, it's a better saying, it sounds better, but it's basically, he who does not live to serve is not fit for living. Have you seen a lot of our political leaders? They have their bodyguards. They don't even pick up a piece of trash. They don't even do anything. Everyone is carrying their luggage. Everyone is making sure that everything's set. They just have to be comfortable, and they have to be the person in charge. A lot of times CEOs of businesses are that as well, are just like that as well. And what he's saying, he's talking with a guy that from another church, actually, another denomination, that was just, everyone was, they're on the same plane together. They're sitting next to each other. And there's literally a pastor that has people carrying all of his stuff and everything. And he starts to talk with Dr. Gustavo Crocker, and he says, oh, hey, and what about your church? And he said, well, we're the Church of the Nazarene. He said, oh, you guys are the little ones, aren't you? And he said, well, yeah. He said, how many churches you got? He said, well, Dr. Crocker said, I'm not pastor of a single church, but we have 35,000 around the world. And the guy said, oh, look at you. Oh, man, how come 35,000 and you're a general superintendent is what you said? How come you don't have people carrying your bags? Come on. And Dr. Crocker said, that's not what being a general superintendent is about. You've missed it. He said, you may feel like being head of your organization, being head of your church, has given you the ability and the title to be able to do that, but that is not the case. If you are serving God, then you are a servant. The transformational leader is a servant, but is also a mentor, a shepherd maker. You guys are here. I'm not going to talk about this very much. It's a transformational leader has to be duplicating themselves in others. So I'll just say transformational leader is also a spokesperson, a communicator. In our doctoral course, we talk about techniques about communication. We talk about types of communication. There are rhetorical ones. They restate the thing. He says he's like this. He says something, but then he also says it another way, and then says it another way. And you know, there's rhetorical communicators, but there are different other communicators as well, very succinct, and there are styles of communication that are different. That's fine. But the fact is that you must be a spokesperson. If you are a transformational leader, at least a Christian transformational leader, then you must, with clarity, communicate to others with consistency, not just, well, he said one thing. Well, I don't understand what the next thing is. There is a joke that we have about a leader that's in our circle. This is just a joke. If you want to know what so-and-so thinks, go talk with the last person that he was talking with. If you want to know what he thinks, just go to the last person. Don't go to the first person, because he's already changed his mind as he's talked to 4 or 5 other people. This is a person that is congruent, a person that's clear, and is a spokesperson. And we're just getting done. I know that there may be some questions as well. But remember, the transformational leader also is a fighter, is a struggler. This is one that a lot of times we don't talk about. How do we struggle? How do we wrestle with how do we fight to gain not just what our will is, but also what is the will of others? How do we make sure that even amongst conflict, that we are struggling, that we are wrestling, that we are seeking the best for the organization, the best for the church, the best for God's kingdom? We must be willing to embrace conflict, not seek it out. But remember, I had a privilege of being in Nazareth. I know that the risk is big to be in Nazareth at this time of day, or at this time in the world. But remember that if the problem is essential, the leader needs to confront the problem. Do you remember that Jesus literally said, when he saw that they were selling, there were money changers that were in the synagogue, in the temple, that he said, I'm going to fight for this. I've been able to preach against the Pharisees. I've been able to preach against in certain other ways, but I'm literally going to throw over the tables in this moment, because this is worth fighting for. My house will be a house of prayer for all the nations. A leader that is transformational has to be able to wrestle, to fight for something, but in a positive way, not just for your perspective. I'm not saying just fight for what you believe and just leave everyone else in the dust. No, I'm saying when you have convictions and when you know and there is conflict, seek the best for the kingdom. Sometimes that will be that you wrestle and you figure out, you know what? I need to change. I need to adapt. A transformational leader must struggle, must wrestle, but also without fear gets involved in conflicts in in a productive way. And the final one is the transformational leader is a sustainer. They don't just mentor someone, but they also equip and make sure that the sustenance, or that they sustain the organization long after they are gone. That's what he means by sustainer. Well, our time is done. I know that I've gone over, but man, I could go on and on. I have a whole doctoral program that we're launching that is based on this. I hope that you are able to buy the book. I hope that you're able to talk about this with other people, pass this on. And we talk about mobilization, we talk about vision, we talk about strategic leadership. I think the book that I told you is in Spanish, but it has to be in Spanish. I imagine some people are already asking in the chat that if it's in Spanish. So I'm going to hand over this time. Thank you. Okay, they confirmed that yes, it is. Transformational leadership. And there's also one that he wrote, Developing the Church in the Model of Jesus Christ, by Dr. Gustavo Crocker, and he's taken some things from that. There are questions that are coming in. Somebody was talking about, my doubt is regarding communication. Does it change? Is there a certain process that is better, a certain process that is valued more or more effective? And his response is, a lot of times that we are able to say, okay, we communicate, and we say, here's 1, 2, 3, here's what you should do, here's what we should do, here's the vision. There's another communicator that's kind of communicates out of emotions. Well, one day he's like this, she's like this, high, low. We need to be consistent. There are different styles of communicators. But what changes is how we channel those messages. I know that I'm a rhetorical communicator. So I have to get things down to more, I have to be more concise. I have to be more concrete. You're going to constantly be flying around a topic and never land the plane. So I know that that's my big risk. I know that that's what I need to work on. But there are others that are very different. I use PowerPoint. It helps me to develop, my outline and to stay on an outline so that I don't just continue to go off subject, off topic. If you are a communicator, and the people know, if you are a conventional communicator, then a conventional communicator just kind of says, okay, this is what it is. That's what it is, and it has to be that way. And there's no nuance, I guess, is what he's saying. And there are other people that are more of the emotional side, and they'll make you feel what they're feeling, and that's sometimes an excellent way of communicating. Remember that a leader is an apprentice.